Good morning, everybody. Brett Plant here from Oxygen Projects. I hope you're all well. I just wanted to share this bit of a recording, bit of a longer video. In one of my previous posts, I said I would, and just give a bit of background to one of our recent acquisitions, which did take a while. It took a couple of years in the end, but resulted in, we think, a win-win for everybody, the landowner, ourselves. And for us, it was the acquisition of a piece of land at 3% of gross development value. So things like this, in truth, don't come around every day, but they certainly are out there, and this is proof of that. I was going to give everyone a little bit of a storyline behind it, and hopefully some tips and pointers, if it can be useful to anybody, on how you might be able to do the same. So I'll perhaps start by showing you the piece of land, which is in Nottingham, and this is what we've got. What we've got here is it's a large commercial site, actually, with where I am at the moment there on the screen. That is a dry cleaners, and the bottom part of it is a garage, a car garage. And all this here is effectively scrubland, but owned by the same people. I'm going to tell you towards the end of when I'm discussing the site of how we come to actually speak to the landowners on this and how it came about. But what I'll do at the moment, I'll just focus on talking about the site itself and how we were able to work with the landowner, but sort of split it off. And use the history, really, or work with the history of the site to create an outcome that works for everybody. So a little bit about that history. This site it is owned, as I say, by the same owners, and it was put forward back in 2010 for redevelopment for the whole of the site. Seemed contentious at the time. The planners didn't really like it. And it took 4.5 years for the existing owner, or the previous owner of our part, of just getting outline planning permission. I think he got 14 homes on this area down here, and a block of 6 apartments on this part here, which looks something like this, which shows kind of nicely divided there. The bottom part here is the housing, and the block of apartments is there. That took 4.5 years for the existing owner, and then tens of thousands of pounds. It could have been a lot different, I think, if you'd have had a different team. And there's no criticism at all. He's obviously a business owner, successful at what he does. He's not a planning professional. He's not a developer. He put his trust in other people, and I don't think they really did him justice, or did the site justice. In his mind, he still wanted to move on and get a larger business premises. So 2 years ago, we were talking about the whole site, taking it from him, working up a scheme and taking it wholesale, if you like. What became apparent is that even with our best designs and the kind of numbers and density that we knew we could get on, it was still never going to be enough for the landowner to buy the kind of new premises that he wanted, and to cover the costs of that and the relocation costs. So after a couple of months of that, again, it's all about sitting down, but we had a meeting with him, and we discussed that it's just not likely, it's just not feasible, because the kind of figures he was looking at. We were a couple of £100,000 off what he needed to move, and that's just too large a gap to try and make up, really. So what we then moved our attention to was he was going to keep these buildings and keep his business running from there, and we would just work on this scrub area here, because at the minute it's clearly not doing anything. It's money that it's money that he's spent including this application, and he's still got nothing as an outcome for it. So we looked towards that, and I'm just going to show you on this image here what we started to do. So you can see the garage, the laundry there, that's his commercial side of it. What we looked to do initially, well, secondary actually, when just looking at this piece of scrubland, was to work with all of this scrubbed area here. So not just the bit that's highlighted, but all of this. Where it's highlighted there, that shows quite large contours. So it is a steep site, not particularly easy, straightforward from design, but we did try and work something in to get the maximum for this land area that he's not using. Again, very open discussions. We talked to him about what we were trying to do. We worked on that for many months actually, but again, the contours, the nature of the land, it did prove to be very difficult. We then approached him and said, not only is this difficult, but you've got a main drain running right through your land. Now, incredibly, after 4.5 years with the previous architects, planning consultants, planners, this was never actually picked up on. I'll revert back to the original plan that he had drawn up in a moment. But the 6 apartments that I mentioned on the scrubland were actually sited right over that main drain. You can't build over a main drain, and you certainly can't build in an easement area, which is this area here. So there's a 10-metre easement around there, around the main drain run, that can't be built on either. So this land here is too heavily contoured, it's too steep to build anything on cost effectively. We've then got this area here of a 10-metre strip that can't be built on either, because it's an easement area. So what we've actually got left is this area here, and where it's highlighted in red, that's what we ended up working on. And we did work with the owner. We did every step of the way communicate our thoughts and work with what he wanted originally, and this is important, and I'll come to this in a little while. Initially he wanted to sell the whole site, but we couldn't get to where his figures needed to be. Secondly, we tried to work on all of the scrub area, which was of no use to him, to get the most for it. But actually what he's got is land that's perhaps not developable or cost effectively developable, and then he's got the main easement or drain area there that he can't do anything with either. And as we brought these up to his attention, he's a realist, you know, these are the facts, there's nothing we can do about it. We were left with this area here, and the price that we were able to pay did reduce. The price clearly for the whole site would be much greater than just this first part of scrubland. That would have been much greater than just this little developable bit here. So it came to the point that we said, you know, we're still happy to do something, but realistically all we've got is this area here marked in red, and this is what we can afford to pay you for that. And he took a view that was better than doing nothing with it and it remaining there. He definitely ran out of steam with his planning experience, and he was happy for us to take it forward and take the risk. What I think he's come out with would be, at least for him to have got the money back that he'd spent on his planning applications over the years, because that was sizable, and it was a hole in his pocket that wasn't you know, no way of filling it. So if we could get that to move forward, that would be a working solution. So that's what we did. So the latter phase of this was just to be working on the area highlighted in red there, which, if again you bear with me, I will show you what we did. So this is the area just in red, the scrubland here. And this is what we were able to do with it. So if I can just show you this here, there's the laundry, that's the commercial area there, commercial unit. Drainage easement mark there, which we've got parking bays on, but that's okay, it's not buildable or building. And what we've got here is our block of 6 2-bed, 2-bathroom apartments, which was sited there, which is now there. So from a planning point of view, it's difficult for the planners to refuse this. They've already set a precedent here by granting permission for 6 apartments here. They didn't pick up on either, not that they particularly should have, that this was a drainage run. This was further up this rise, this hill here, than our location. So in actual fact, our location is lower down. It's less obtrusive, if you like, less massing to the properties here and to the other side over here. So it's very, very difficult for them to put a realistically firm argument together for us not getting planning permission, and that's the view we took. Our difficulty was designing something that actually fitted what was left with the site and the contours, but with a good architect and a good planning consultant, it's not straightforward, but it's certainly doable, and that's what we've got here. And these units are actually quite large. You could argue too large, but we felt we didn't want to push for 7 units, but the 6 units in here of over, I think they're about 75 square meters, some of them. So they're quite large for what we've got. And that has now been granted. So the whole process took 2 years in actual fact. And to give you a bit of a backdrop of how we did it from a conveyancing and legals point of view, if I just show you on this page here what we've got. So this is the site again, but what's highlighted here is the legal, the title boundary. So the owner had already split off his works title there, his commercial works title there, and the scrubland here. So first we looked for the whole site, second we tried to work with this bit, and thirdly, and what we ended up doing is signing and entering an option agreement that we would take what we noted as the area in red there within a 12-month period, which was the second 12-month period. First of all, we had 12 months option on the whole site, which we didn't get anything meaningful to work for everybody there. We expressed what we'd been through, and you could see we'd made a lot of effort. We'd tried things that he hadn't done before. He knew we were working for a solution. And we said that we would like to have another go for another 12 months option agreement for the area, as I said, here onwards marked in red on the other image. And what an option agreement is, for those who don't know, is an option to purchase land, not an obligation, but an option within a pre-agreed time period and for a pre-agreed amount. So we agreed 12 months and we agreed the amount of the purchase. Now, if we didn't want to go ahead with that for any reason, we didn't have to, because, as I say, there's no obligation to that. There is also no, if you'd exchanged subject to planning, there are generally constraints or denotations about what the planning permission should be, but with an option we've got carte blanche really. We can just say yes, we'll take it, or no, we won't, and if we don't, it just expires and nothing changes from a legal's point of view. We went for a block of 6 apartments here because we felt that was what was certainly possible, but the worst case scenario at the kind of figures that we'd agreed, even if we got 1 dwelling on there, we felt it'd work, but we didn't want to be tied to that. So the option agreement was the best vehicle for us. He was in agreement to that. He understood where we were coming from. So that's what happened. It was the second option agreement, as I said, so it took close to 2 years in the end. We got full planning permission for the 6 apartments about 10 months into the 12-month period of the second option agreement, and then we moved to completion. And I'm glad to say we have fully completed on this with full planning permission. So this has turned out to be a really good site for us, but boy, we've had to work at it. But with the right relationships and understanding with the owner, it's certainly doable. And a lot of these things, you talk to a lot of people, planning does take a long time. It's not always a straightforward thing. These little bits of infill are sometimes difficult, but sometimes if there's any level of difficulty, a lot of people might overlook it instead of kind of rolling your sleeves up and getting on with it. And I just want to give you a little bit about how this came about, actually, because if you're looking for sites regularly, you may have heard it said before, but tell everyone what you do. And our normal sort of mechanism, we talk to agents, we write to landowners, but in this case, a previous contractor of ours who was working regularly on a contractual basis, she's actually moved on maternity leave at the moment, but she was a kickboxing gym to which she'd been going to for about a year, and she got talking to a chap there who is the landowner, And you know, they'd known each other on a completely different level at their kickboxing gym for 12 months. There's a level of familiarity, a level of trust there. She got talking, she told people what she did, what we do, what we were looking for, and the conversation unfolded from there. A few weeks after that, I went and met the landowner, and we started direct sort of communications, if you like, and we just kept discussing things, the history of it, and we can find out things ourselves, but his personal emotional journey and the kind of money he'd spent to get pretty much nowhere with it, really, or nothing meaningful. I've just explained what we've done. We've got a couple of things very close, actually, just at the top of the road up here. We've got a site that we were building out, which I was able to show him and take him around, which was useful, but that's not always necessary, but it's certainly useful. He liked what we were doing. He could see we were active and willing to work with us. And I took the time, and this is really important actually, to understand what he wanted, the journey he'd been through and what he wanted from it. And went away and just constantly thinking how you can give the owner what they want, not what I can get from the owner, because that's what it's all about, really. It's like any negotiation. If you can create a win-win, or what we create is a win-win-win, actually, because you're involved in a housing association and delivering homes for people who need them as well. So if you can do that, I think you're on to a successful formula. But ultimately, when you're talking to landowners, just be mindful of what they want out of it. Well, with any property owner, actually, or any dealings. So I hope that's useful anyway. I've left the comment box open at the bottom, so if you want to ask any questions, feel free to do so. I'm going to be putting a few more videos up on other sites. We've got things coming and going all the time. So this is the land sourcing side of what we do, and there will be other videos on the other parts as well, which will be the contractors, how to appoint the right contractors and what they're for, and obviously speaking to charities and housing associations to complete the circle. But hopefully this is useful on the part of the land. Like I say, please leave any questions, and if you see me out and about, please come up, say hello, and I'd love to chat. All right, cheers, bye bye.